Hey everybody, I was heading to bed, but I decided to make a video. Um, as I was sitting today waiting for my husband at the doctor, some thoughts started coming into my head. I guess it's kind of like the crime stuff we're all talking about and whatever. I started doing some research into different areas and I remembered some things that I wanted to share with you. So I'm going to play this short video. I'm not going to play the whole thing. This is actually a news broadcast from WKBW News like in 1993. Trying to remember how old I would have been. I'm not very good at math. But the arrest, I think, happened in the 90s. But I'll tell you more about this in a minute. I'll explain to you why it affects me. Let's see. Hang on, I need to turn this up. You can't hear it.
Finally tonight, an update on our top story, a sex scandal in the Buffalo Catholic Diocese. As Eyewitness News reported first today, two priests, Father Bernard Mock and Father John Aurelio, have been placed on leaves of absence. That follows Father Aurelio's admission that he and Father Mock sexually abused teenage boys at least 10 years ago. We'll have the latest tonight at 11. Now here's ABC.
As soon as I walked through the door, Father Aurelio pushed me down on the bed, and he jumped on my chest. While Father Mock got behind me and performed other acts.
Shocking sexual abuse allegations tonight against two area Catholic priests. Good evening. This is Eyewitness News at 11. I'm Keith Radford. Kathleen is off tonight. We begin our look at tonight's top news, weather, and sports, with an Eyewitness News investigation. Happening tonight, the latest allegations against two priests from the Roman Catholic Diocese in Buffalo, alleging the sexual abuse of children. And one of the priests involved has confessed now. We begin our team coverage tonight with the victims and Eyewitness News reporter Steve Boyd.
When Father Bernard Mock stood on the altar of St. Mary's Roman Catholic Church in Lockport and denied charges that he sexually abused a 14-year-old John Doe 2 years ago, other alleged victims were watching. Since then, at least 3 other victims have come forward to tell authorities and News Channel 7 that they too were attacked not only by Father Mock, but also by his housemate and longtime friend, Father John Aurelio. Billy says he was 14 when he was attacked 14 years ago. He says it happened here at Cliffside, the former home of Fathers Mock and Aurelio. Billy says he was given marijuana and alcohol and invited into the sauna with Father Aurelio.
His friend, who was a priest, touched me, and I kind of woke up out of a stupor. I really didn't know what was going on.
After running away and hiding for about an hour, Billy says Father Mock found him and then sodomized him. David was also 14 when he says he was attacked in much the same manner.
Father Aurelio jumped on my chest and forced himself upon me in a oral way. And Father Mock jumped on the bed and forced himself on me. At that time, sodomizing me.
Robert was luckier. At age 10 or 11, he remembers drinking whiskey with Father Aurelio and the priest trying to lure him into a sexual act.
So I was fighting with him, and I went to the room on the left. That's what I recall. There was a small bed in there, and he came in, exposed himself to me, was trying to get my pants down, wanted me to touch him, and I was successful in fighting him off. He was, for some reason he gave up on me. So, I was making I was going to kill him.
All of these victims tell remarkably similar stories, and all have approached law enforcement officials. All 3 say they were motivated by 2 people. A 14-year-old John Doe, whom they say very few people were believing last week, and by Father Bernard Mock, whom all 3 victims say gave an arrogant denial speech from the pulpit at St. Mary's. As our team coverage continues, Lisa Flynn reports that less than a week after Father Mock's homily, investigators heard Father Aurelio's confession.
Father John Aurelio stood by his best friend's side when Father Bernard Mock faced his congregation to answer the sexual abuse allegations. Friends of the pair say it was natural for Father Aurelio to come to his friend's aid. After all, their friendship dates back 30 years. Ironically, it is also Father Aurelio who exposed Father Mock's past to Niagara County law enforcement authorities. And that past could come back to haunt Father Mock. Our investigation has revealed that Father Aurelio admitted to authorities that he and Father Mock had sex with teenage boys 15 to 20 years ago at the home they shared in East Aurora. Father Aurelio told investigators that boys brought marijuana to their home and that the boys initiated the sexual advances. Aurelio told investigators he and Mock were young and naive and experimented sexually back then, but he said he and Mock had been celibate since they sold the house 10 years ago. Bernard Mock served at several churches in the Buffalo Diocese.
One of
His
them being
assignments
mine.
included stints at Precious Blood, St. Gerard's, and Our Lady of Perpetual Help. He was assigned to St. Mary's in Lockport in 1990. Throughout his career, Father Mock has been active in parish youth groups and was founder of Mission, an 8-day spiritual journey for parishioners throughout the diocese. Father John Aurelio is one of the most respected priests in the Buffalo Diocese. His first assignment was at St. Helen's Church in Hinsdale, New York in 1967. A year later, he moved on to Cardinal Mindszenty High School in Dunkirk. He then moved on to serve as chaplain of West Seneca Developmental Center, a school for handicapped children. Father Aurelio also served at St. Catherine's of Siena in West Seneca, St. John the Evangelist in Buffalo in 1988, and Christ the King Seminary in East Aurora. In 1981, Father Aurelio accompanied 100 handicapped Western New Yorkers to the Vatican. He's also written several children's books. Fathers Mock and Aurelio owned a home together for several years in East Aurora, and now live together at this home in the town of Irving. Just today, the bishop placed them on leaves of absence.
In conjunction with the need for the diocesan investigation to continue to explore any new allegations that have surfaced, causes the bishop to realize that this is the best thing for all concerned.
As recently as
Okay, I mean, that's enough. More than enough, really. The reason why I'm showing you this is because it really touched my life. You don't know who's in your children's lives or in your life sometimes. And I think we've seen this like with the Chris Watts case and other things that we've investigated and other people have investigated over time. I was a little girl. My school and my church was St. Gerard's Church, one of the parishes that Father Mock and Father John were priests at for a time. Father Mock was very charismatic. That's how I would describe him. And now that I look back on it, very narcissistic, showy, histrionic, but obviously very sadistic too, to be molesting little boys. Father John was more the guy that I kind of, if you want to say, felt attached to. Like little kids kind of admire their parish priests. That's how it was, at least when I was growing up. You had like a favorite priest and they would treat you like their little buddy and tap you on the shoulder and hug you and sit you on their knee and tell you stories when you were little, you know. Father John, when I would walk to school and to church sometimes, he would be waiting there in the parking lot and get down on one knee and sing a song called Laura is the Name in the Misty Light. And he would serenade me, like on one knee. And then I'd run into his arms and he'd give me a big hug in his big smock that he wore. And I remember it like it was yesterday, honestly. I was a little kid, a little girl. He's never touched me in any inappropriate way, neither has Father Mock. And in fact, Father Mock and Father John were super close family friends. I mean, they were at dinners with me. Like, my family would sit down to dinner. Father Mock and Father John would be sitting right there with us. My cousins and I, we did lots of things as a family. At my grandmother's house, they would come to my grandmother's house. Father John and Father Mock, they would hang out with our family. We had hot dog roast. We had pool parties. I'm not sure, but I think my mom even took me like out to that house that they had in Brant, New York. And then they had like the school in West Seneca. I don't remember if I've ever been there. But I can tell you that I remember growing up hearing that Father John helped build this handicapped accessible pool for the children that were in wheelchairs. And I remember my mom talking about it, talking about how he built this pool so they could like be wheeled down into the pool and be able to kind of float around a while or whatever with assistance, of course. And that he built this handicapped accessible pool. He also wrote children's books, like they said, very popular children's books. You don't know. You don't know who is doing what to your family, to your children, and it's hard to know. I know my daughter was being molested by 2 or 3 boys out in the clubhouse in our backyard, and I did not know. I thought they were out there just playing house. My ex-husband had built this clubhouse for them to just, be kids in. And they weren't being kids in it, let's just say. And not only was my daughter being molested by these 2 boys, they told both of her older sisters to keep it a secret, especially the youngest one at the time. They told her they'd give her Barbie dolls if she didn't tell mommy what was going on. Well, my daughter started acting very strangely, and one day I pulled her aside and I said, "Randy, what's going on?" And she started crying, broke down, and said, "I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to tell you." And then she told me what was going on. They're out there doing stuff. They're on top of each other doing stuff in front of um Anna and me. And I was horrified. I was like, "Oh my gosh. You don't know what's going on right under your nose sometimes with your kids. So be really aware of what's happening." And it doesn't matter if it's a priest, a minister, or who it is. People are human, and some people have illnesses, and some people are just plain sadists. And these 2 priests, I had to talk about this because this has been really kind of eating at me for years. And I wanted to get the message out there that these priests that they were on the news, I look at that and say, I knew them. I knew them like up close and personal all my life from the time I was a baby on up till probably 4th or 5th grade. And yeah, it's pretty darn shocking. And then years later, your mom tells you, "Hey, did you hear about such and such?" Because she'd be talking to like other adults about it. And I don't get meta messages. Like I've told you before, I don't understand like inside jokes. I don't understand if people are talking around me, hinting about things. I don't read between lines very well. So years later, as an adult, my mom had to tell me what happened. And I was like, "What? Father John and Father Mock?" We used to call him Corky Mock. His name was actually Bernard, but nobody called him Bernard. We all knew him as Corky. And he was always hanging around, always. I sang in the folk group, he was there. I mean, we did gatherings at the church, he was there. He held hands with us. We lifted hands during the Our Father together. I mean, he gave me communion. Okay, so did Father John. Father John did my class masses for me when I was a child. My whole childhood has been full, loaded, past the brim, full of disillusionment. I guess that's why I say nothing surprises me anymore. Nothing. The stuff that's going on YouTube, there's nothing new under the sun. Not even that. This is just more Pale Talk, all over again. Pale Talk was back in 2001 to 2008, I think. And this is just more of the same, different names, different faces. There's nothing new to me. I've seen this all before. I've seen the he said, she said, backstabbing, going into rooms, turning one against the other. This is nothing new to me. And I don't want any part of that negative stuff. I keep on giving my opinion, when I want to. And I stand for what I believe in. But all this other stuff is just same old for me. Same old. I'd love it if we could have an idealized society or an idealized channel or idealized YouTube, whatever. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, or if ever. I'm an idealist and I know that my ideas are ridiculous, but it would be nice if everybody could just, collaborate together and get along, maybe interview each other and respect each other's differences. And have strong opinions, but don't put the other person down for disagreeing with your opinions. Anyway, I just shared all this because I want you to know if you have gone through this stuff. I have not been molested by these priests. I don't know anybody personally that has. I just know that I knew the happy side of them while all the bad stuff was going on. I didn't know anything about any of that. I was so sheltered as a child, healthfully so. It kept me out of trouble and kept me safe. I'm alive to tell about it. I've had friends that were followed home by kidnappers. I've had incidences where I've been followed home in my car. God has really had his hand on me for such a time as this so that I could talk to people and tell you you're not alone and give you this message and let you know that I was alive and around back then while this was going on with the Catholic Church, especially our Catholic Church. And it didn't happen in our church. It happened at these priests' houses. I mean, they lived together. It happened at their home. And apparently, I guess the first thing that I learned was that there was a homosexual thing between them, obviously. And then the next thing I learned was that they had been molesting little boys. And I had relatives that had gone to that same house. I don't know if any of them were touched in any way. It's not like little boys really talk about that as grown men. They're taught to be strong and not, express that stuff. But there are men that are molested, and this is just proof of it. There were little boys that they preyed upon. I don't think there were any girls. It's just sick. It's so sick, and it disturbs me so bad, and it will always bother me because that was a very sheltered, beautiful childhood that I thought was so happy and so perfect, and this priest was singing to me and making me feel special while he's behind closed doors raping and molesting young boys. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that other than murder, seriously. And that did murder those kids' lives, I'm sure. They probably struggle to this day to trust people. I know I've been hurt very badly by priests and ministers, both. Big reason I don't trust authority sometimes. And very quickly, I decided to learn the Bible for myself, so I don't need a man or woman to teach me. I enjoy teachings, but I know the Bible, so I really don't need to sit under teaching to learn it. I don't trust people in authority very well. I respect them, but I don't trust them a lot of times, and now you kind of know why. Anyhow, I just wanted to share that. I don't know. I just felt like sharing it from my heart and letting you know that that story, that situation was personal to me, very personal. And although it was just a news broadcast to some people, that was my life. Not the molesting part, obviously, but the involvement, close involvement, like family. They were like family. We treated them like family. When we had Christmas, they got Christmas presents. I remember my mom giving them presents and stuff, and just having Bible studies with them and stuff. It was just, I don't know. It blows your mind, all the stuff that you find out about your childhood shows. Sesame Street was full of satanic type stuff. Um, Little House on the Prairie, Michael Landon was very abusive at times. And a lot of directors of shows on TV were abusive towards the children, towards the actresses and actors. I mean, it's all, my whole childhood and growing up has been one big ball of disillusionment. So I've had to pick up the pieces and form a better adulthood, and that's what I try to do every day of my life, with my job, with my husband, with what God's given me, and with all of you. So, from me to you, for whatever it's worth, know that you're not alone and that this stuff is real and that I've lived it, in one way or another, or know somebody that has. Thanks for listening anyway. Bye. Good night.